Hey everybody, and welcome to SpaceWeek Live for Sunday, September 13th, 2020. Let's see. So, welcome everyone, and it was looking to be a fairly quiet week, but turned out to be pretty eventful. There weren't a lot of launches, but the launches that happened were worthy of talking about, so let's take a look. On Monday, let me switch over to my... There we go. On Monday, China launched the Gaufen 1102 Earth observation satellite on a Long March 4B rocket. The launch was successful as the satellite entered its desired orbit. Let's take a look. Oh, my browser's being stupid again. Let me fix the audio. I've really got to come up with a solution for this because it pulls this junk on me every single time. I've got to go in and fix the audio sources because I've got different applications that play audio on different channels, and they get processed by my streaming software. So, anywho, let me start this over again with audio. So, let's take a look at that again in slow motion, because the panels falling off of that payload fairing were pretty neat. Let's take a look. So the chunks that we see falling off. All right, so typically when you see chunks of material falling off of a rocket, it is chunks of ice that have condensed on the outside of the rocket from the moisture in the surrounding air due to the cryogenic fuels that are contained inside. Now, I found that puzzling because the Long March 4B rocket supposedly doesn't use any cryogenic fuels. All three of its stages use hypergolic fuels, which we see here on the Wikipedia page. We've got stage 1, hypergolics, stage 2, hypergolics, stage 3, hypergolics, dinitrogen tetroxide, and unsymmetrical dimethylhydrazine, or UDMH. Now, I did notice, if we take a look at this again, all of the ice is coming from the payload fairing, not from the body of the rocket. I did notice somebody in the chat saying, it was a Snow Kitten saying the rain of isolation panels. So possible explanations for this stuff falling off of the rocket include it's conceivable that there is an alternative configuration of the rocket's third stage which involves using cryogenic fuel, which I kind of doubt. It's possible that there are cryogenics used in the payload itself, which I also doubt because they would experience constant boil-off and the fuel would evaporate in a matter of days or weeks. And thirdly, isolation panels. So I do not have a lot of specific knowledge of the Long March 4B, but Snow Kitten's use of the word isolation panels makes me think that maybe there's some sort of fall-away insulation or something that is used on the payload fairing that just falls away, when it launches. So an interesting phenomenon, and if anybody has any specific insights on that, let's see. Yeah, any specific insights on that would be useful, because again, I'm not actually a rocket expert. I'm just an enthusiast. So always looking to learn, which is the goal. So after the launch, the first stage, and this is true of all first stages except for the Falcon rockets, the Falcon 9 and the Falcon Heavy. The first stage plummeted back to Earth. The difference being that launches from China and Russia don't fall into the ocean, they fall on land. And in this case, the first stage booster crashed in a nearby town and nearly wiped out a school, which a local resident was able to catch here. Let's check that out. So, yeah, so the orange smoke cloud is caused by the rocket's hypergolic fuel. UDMH is very toxic, and everyone milling around near that crash site is at risk. So, for example, when Crew Dragon landed a couple of months ago, the crew had to wait for like an hour before exiting the capsule due to lingering hypergolic fuel residue. The stuff is really nasty. And even though I'm pretty sure that the CNSA is not watching SpaceWeek, China, you can do better. People matter and lives matter. And I can only hope that one day the administration over there realizes this. Because that sort of raining rocket parts down on communities is utterly ridiculous and shameful. So then came Saturday, a day for 2 failed launches. First was China's second launch attempt last week, or second launch last week, was a Kuaizhou 1A rocket with the, let me switch to the webcam Rooney, with the Jilin 102C high-resolution remote sensing satellite. Not much information was provided by the Chinese state media about the launch, except that the rocket did not reach, the payload did not reach its intended orbit. So I don't actually have video of that, but, so the rocket launched, but it didn't get its payload where it needed to go. So that was a failure. Also on Saturday, after months of delays and scrubs, Astra Space finally launched their Astra 3.1 rocket. Let's take a look. Let's take an actual look. Multitasking. Okay, let's try again. Well, that looked good, but unfortunately, if we move to the next segment, this video was captured by, I don't even know who, somebody standing nearby watching the launch.
Rocket launch in Kodiak, Alaska. Pretty cool.
Failure.
Huh.
See if we see anything coming down here.
Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, here it comes. Geez, that's right where we were deer hunting this morning.
Whoa. And that, I don't think was good.
Excellent assessment by the observer there. So, yeah, so as Astra explained it, early in the flight, their guidance system introduced some oscillation into the flight, which threw the rocket off of its planned trajectory. So they commanded an engine shutdown, which you heard in the video there. Suddenly the roar of the engine was cut dead. after the rocket started wobbling back and forth, and then it crashed in an uninhabited area because it launched from Kodiak Island, Alaska, which is really in the middle of nowhere. So Astra explains that while they did not achieve all of their mission objectives, they did learn a lot, and they never expected their first flight to be perfect. First flights almost never are. Elon Musk, in a tweet, consoled them and congratulated them on the progress that they have made, saying that it took SpaceX four tries to reach orbit. So space is hard, as we say, and it really is. So Godspeed to Astra. Hopefully they make it next time, but I guess we shall see. Also, yeah, so that's it for last week. Looking ahead to this week, there is only one launch planned, and that is on Thursday, September 17th at 2:17 p.m. Eastern, 6:17 p.m. GMT. SpaceX will launch the 13th batch of Starlink satellites on a Falcon 9 rocket. There won't be any ride shares this time, just 60 more Starlink satellites, which will put their total at, I don't know, something above 700 satellites. It's actually difficult to keep track. I don't know if there's a website somewhere because some of them have deorbited, and I'm not sure if all of them are functional. I'm not sure if that information is even public. But yeah, Arturuxo is saying that Astra has 2 more attempts planned. I did read that they were anticipating 3 tries to make it to orbit. So yeah, that's the only launch this week. Let's move on to questions. I have a request. Anyone who wishes to ask a question, please tag my name. Just put raw space or @raw space in the chat. That way I will make sure to notice your question amongst all of the other chat. Okay, let me scroll back up real quick and switch to webcam full. I really need hotkeys for these things because all this Windows switching and clicking buttons is dangerous. So somebody said, greetings from Oregon. Greetings, that's my home state originally. I haven't lived there in a long time. Maria Kutujan, good afternoon to you also. Hello, Microsound, and everyone else. Snow Kittens, with regards to the Long March 4B rocket with the material falling off of the payload fairing, Snow Kittens said, satellites are not a fan of temperature differences. U.S. launchers often have a cooling system inside pre-launch or a thick pipe coming from the fairing. So it's quite possible that the material falling off of the payload fairing was insulation intended to isolate the satellite inside from temperature differences, which makes sense. I've not heard of that kind of insulation system before that just falls off of the payload fairing as the rocket launches, but that's a definite possibility. So to clarify, Ataruxo, the material falling off of the rocket that we watched, the slow motion of, and the booster falling on the Chinese village, that was the Long March 4B that launched the Gaufen satellite. And that was a successful launch with a dangerous booster crash. And and the failed launch was a Kuaizhou 1B, whatever. It was a Kuaizhou rocket, Kuaizhou 1A rocket, with the Jilin 102C satellite, and that's the one that failed to reach its desired orbit. Chris V asks, why don't they use Falcon Heavy to launch more than 60 sats at a time? So Falcon Heavy, with regard, in response to Starlink. So Falcon Heavy, it has a greater lift capacity. It's essentially three Falcon 9 boosters strapped together, but it has the same payload fairing as a Falcon 9. So there's no more room in the Falcon Heavy's payload fairing than there is in broadcasting. Or is there a data issue? I'm getting buffering on my own stream. Hold on a sec. Okay, excellent connection, so that's good. Weird glitch, my bad. Okay, where was I? Falcon Heavy. So if SpaceX wasn't already working on Starship and Super Heavy, then 360 potato, how strange. Everything good now, though? Okay, all right. Anyway, basically, if all they had was the Falcon series, then they would probably have developed a larger payload fairing for the Falcon Heavy to accommodate both larger and heavier, payloads, or more Starlinks or whatever. But they basically have not been doing any further development on the Falcon series because they are focusing on developing Starship. Because once Starship is done, it will be essentially fully reusable, and because remember, Starship is the second stage. Super Heavy will be the first stage, and Starship's payload capacity will be huge. So yeah, if not for Starship, we would probably have a Falcon Heavy with a larger payload fairing. Alas, we do not. So they actually can't cram any more Starlink satellites inside that payload fairing. I mean, it's a big fairing. It's 5 point something meters, and I don't have the dimensions in front of me, but it's a large fairing. But that's all we've got for now, and it'll still be a while before Starlink is ready. Starlink, good lord, before Starship is ready for prime time. But as we can see, they are continuing their work on developing it and doing hops with the SN5 and the SN6. And I read somewhere that their next hop is going to be 60,000 feet or something, which will be very exciting. I'm not sure when that'll be, but good luck to them on that. All right. Station 240 says, also, as Falcon Heavy is just 3 rockets strapped together, paraphrased, it's less risk to have 3 Falcon 9s with 60 sats each than 180 sats in one Falcon Heavy. That's an interesting point, and that's something to chew on. I would have to give it some thought. Obviously, if your Falcon Heavy fails, then you lose 180 satellites, but the cost of 3 separate launches is going to be more than the cost of one big launch. So I don't know how those economics would work out. That would depend, I guess, largely on SpaceX's internal costs, and we're not privy to those. I mean, we know what their external costs are, the price per Falcon Heavy or Falcon 9 in reusable versus expendable mode, but not their internal costs. John Citizen asks, why do we need hops? Because they need to they need to test out the balancing of their rocket bodies. They need to test out the gimbaling of the engines, the throttling of the engines, the behavior of their RCS thrusters to maintain attitude. They the main benefit of rockets like Falcon and Starship is their reusability. And in order to be reusable, they have to land safely and reliably. And so that has to be thoroughly tested. Even things like validating that that the rocket systems function and don't implode or explode or whatever under stress when in flight and the fuel is flowing, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's tens of thousands of different things that could go wrong, and all of those have to be tested. Some of those tests can be done on the ground. Others, they require test flights. Ataruxo is saying, Elon tweeted that he expects SN8 to be stacked by the end of the week, then 2 static fires, then an 18-kilometer hop, or then the 18-kilometer hop. So, yeah, I mean, that's, we can look forward to that. Time will tell whether they're able to pull it off on that time frame, or in that time frame. Obviously, this process has the process of Starship development has had a lot of delays and setbacks and RUDs, rapid unscheduled disassemblies. But they learn with every failure, and even in the intentional failures where they pump a tank full of nitrogen until it explodes from the pressure in order to validate their welding techniques or whatever. Rockin' Robbins 13 says, if you're not crashing, you aren't pushing hard enough. I mean, during the development process, I guess one can say that, but once it's in production, the crashes are best avoided. Ruby's Wax Shop says in Kerbal he adds parachutes to everything. Even on a parachute though, Starship would go crunch when it landed. So, all right. Well, I think that is going to wrap it up for this week. So, thank you all for coming. Thanks for the few questions we got this week. Not a whole lot. I appreciate your joining us today. Keep it raw, and I will see you again next week.